Hey, I'm back. I know it's been a while, but let's chat. I wanted to talk about states of being today, but before I do that, I want to give a disclaimer. You may have been on this self-realization, awakening, or manifestation journey for a while, and sometimes you can hit a plateau. Sometimes it feels like we've heard all of the platitudes that are thrown around, we've read the books, we understand the concepts intellectually, yet we can't seem to change certain things in our life, or we can't seem to reach a higher level of wisdom to make it all click. And that's okay. It's okay. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to stress it. You can get frustrated, you can quit, but there's actually no way for you to ever fall off this grand journey of awakening to yourself, of learning how to be God again, of continually improving and growing in awareness. This has happened to me so many times. But really, there's no veering off the course. The course never ends. You can never not become that which you are. Even if it feels like you're giving up, or you're straying, or you're taking time off, you're not. You're always on the path. But it's not a straight path there. But every path will lead there. So if you're feeling frustrated with manifestation or whatever, it's okay. Accept that that's how you're feeling right now. Go do something else. Go enjoy your existence and all the wonderful experiences that are at your choosing for you to be. Go be for a while. You don't have to keep seeking this when it doesn't feel natural. And when you come back, you come back. But today, I want to talk about states of being. And being, really. Being. What is being? Beingness is existence. Existence is everything. Everything is infinity. All of these are attributes or different names for God. Whatever you want to call it. You want to call it spirit, source, the universe, love, however it speaks to you. I know I've said that before. It is a beingness. It is an amness. It is an awareness. It is you and the world you live in and your unfavorable circumstances. It is every version of heaven and every version of hell. It is anything that ever could be, will be, was, or is. Existence in itself implies the existence of everything. I'm going to read to you a quote from a book that I'm currently reading, Parallel Universes of Self by Frederick Dodson. In the beginning, in the end, and in between and beyond, there was, is, and will be infinity. Infinity is all that is, and it contains anything and everything anyone can imagine. Infinity is infinite, eternal, and multidimensional. Nothing can be taken away or lost from infinity, and nothing can be added. It already contains everything. It always has and always will. Infinity is somethingness and nothingness. Both and neither nor. There are infinite versions of reality. I mean, how could there not be? How could God be anything but infinity? How could we limit the incomprehensible, unthinkable, unimaginable, unknowable, unnameable? We can't. So there are infinite versions of you as well. And there's variations of you. It's like a gradation, okay? So over here we have the highly individualized you. So it's your soul, it belongs to you, it feels like you, it's your consciousness. Actually, your consciousness is all that is, again, and it's one with the total consciousness, the one consciousness, but this gradation scale kind of increases. And depending where you are on this scale, you will see yourself, define your limitations differently. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already know this. This is not exactly news to many of us, but it's easy to get sucked back into the 3D and believing all of its stories, forgetting that that's all they really are. Stories, subjective interpretations, narrations, perspectives, perceptions. And how many of them could there be? Well, let me tell you, an infinity. Again, if we look fractal perspective, it is one and the same as God consciousness. You are really living every possible timeline, life, character, version of you, choice you could have taken, alternate path that there is to be had. You just happen to have gotten entangled in observing this particular one. But you can always observe whatever you choose. And your state of being determines your perception. I prefer not to get too surgically anal about definitions, like within the law of assumption, like, oh, this is your state of being, and it only means this thing, and then self-concept is this other thing, and then this is why affirming it is just... Self-concept and state of being are intimately linked, but there are two levels to your self-concept. The first is while you're still identified with the avatar that you're currently playing, so you have accepted stories about it. You have accumulated a personality, and your self-concept of this character could be like, oh, well, yeah, I'm pretty cool, but I could never, like, be a billionaire, for example, or I'm not blank enough for this, or whatever, or stories about the world, your environment, like true love is fairly unlikely and rare and hard to find. The second level to your self-concept is actually moving past all these fairly inconsequential stories you have accumulated about your avatar, realizing that you are not the avatar. Well, you both are and you aren't, but you equally are and aren't all the other avatars you could ever possibly conceive of. You are all the stories, you are all the identities, you are all that is, becoming one, becoming no one instead of trying to become someone, becoming one with the void, the primordial ground, the 0 point. Being able to hold this awareness of your true beingness makes manifesting things in the 3D a whole lot easier, but let's start with the first level of self-concept. If you want to understand which identity or state of being you have generally been occupying, just take a look at your life. The proof is in the pudding. Your life is not separate from you, it's not an accident, it is a direct extension of who you are identifying as, who you think you are, what you think your place in the world is. If you are a generally unhappy person, you've been accepting some pretty shit stories about life, and through the mode of your perception, you can train yourself to detect divinity, aka love, in everything, thereby freeing yourself from your mental shackles that you have grown accustomed with. If you are someone who hasn't had any truly committed relationships in your life, but now you're stuck on that one SP and you're wondering why all your affirming isn't changing them, it goes a lot deeper than that one SP. It goes into your self-concept, which usually stems from your childhood, which created some kind of false limiting belief. You just need to take a look at your patterns, your history, things that repeat themselves, and your current situation that you find yourself in to understand exactly who you are identifying as. Now, it helps to think about the ego here a little bit. The ego is neither good nor bad. It certainly has been vilified a lot, but it is just a tool that serves a purpose and a functionality, just like your body or your mind does. Your ego, however, is characterized by a self-preservation instinct. It likes to stay comfortable. It likes what it knows, and egos, until they're trained and developed, tend to be quite brittle. So let's look at a sort of realm of possibilities of experiences for you. The heights that you can reach in terms of satisfaction, happiness, love, meaning, purpose, bravery, money, career. It looks like this, right? And let's say your ego is only comfortable with this band. And when you try to go above that band, your ego, or one facet of this avatar that you think you are, will try to go back to what it knows as familiar. And it will do this either through self-sabotage or convincing you that it's not worth trying and trying to do some like logical reasoning to keep you at that same level. Let's talk about it in terms of taking risks, which confer the risk of failure. If you are someone quite identified with your ego, which means you believe you are your thoughts, you are your beliefs, you are your mind, then this is not going to be a very happy time for you. Because the ego doesn't like to fail. Your ego wants to protect itself from shame, embarrassment, failure, pain, sadness, but it's kind of like there's this tale of this princess who was kidnapped from her castle as a baby by some fishmongers, and she was raised amongst the fishmongers, so she slept in very poor living quarters, and she slept around a lot of dead, rotting fish. And when she was 12, she was found and taken back to her palace, and she was taken to her royal quarters with all of the finest materials and furniture and smells and food in the world, and she hated it. She had a terrible time. She said, "It's so uncomfortable and ugly and unbecoming. Please take me back home to what smells nice, to what looks nice." Because that's what she grew accustomed to, and that's kind of like your ego too. Here is this opportunity that could take you to this far more enjoyable, satisfying, expansive experience of life, but the ego, because it's scared of failure, which is really a non-risk, it's an illusion, it's you can't fail, you just keep going and learning and growing, and life just goes on. Your ego, with its little Stockholm syndrome, has bullied you into staying mediocre and familiar with what the ego knows. So you may never take that risk because you believed your thoughts about why you shouldn't, or if you do, your ego might unconsciously self-sabotage to bring you back to what it feels familiar with. Now, self-sabotage can be reined in with awareness. When you study yourself, you gain deeper self-knowledge, understanding, and awareness of your patterns and inclinations. The power of observation makes that impulse to self-sabotage a lot weaker. But this is important for your self-concept. If there is a core self-concept belief that is in opposition with this new dream or opportunity or goal that you have, let's say that you manage to wrangle the ego and you surpass it and you still take this risk and you achieve it, it is likely that you will ruin it because it is still incompatible with your core self-concept, with who you're identifying with at your core. And this ego, personality, identity makeup brings things back to equilibrium. So this is where it's important to really use your reality as feedback to find out what your deeper self-concept beliefs, which are not true, which are not aligned with the highest truth of God and greatness and love, are, and to then work on reforming them, step into a new identity, identify new beliefs or a new self-concept that you would hold, to be able to then actually hold these new achievements with these risks that you're taking instead of going back to the same point of failure as before. Now, this is very common with depression and people who have gone through trauma and have a lot of very horrible limiting beliefs about their self-worth and a lot of shame. And these people want to get better, and I was this person once upon a time. They genuinely want to get better, but when they try doing these new things that would help them, at the first sign of failure, which again is not failure, it's just a wobble, which is the nature of this dynamic universe that we live in, nothing stays static ever. That first sign that they didn't do it, their ego takes over and brings them back into that shame and self-pity and feelings of hopelessness and despair. So if anyone is currently suffering from depression, I would really urge you to put more observation on the role that your ego is playing in its own selfish objectives of keeping itself safe and familiar with the shame and despair that it thinks is safe because it's familiar, but really it's not desirable nor necessary. And to keep pushing. The beautiful thing about this line and this band of tolerance with your ego is that the more times you just push up here, the band will move up. And I've really noticed this in my own life, in everything that I've done. I'm saying this so that you can start to separate yourself from your ego and see it as a really useful tool, which over time can become more helpful than obstructive. Once you have that separation between who you are, your I amness, your beingness, and your ego, choosing which state of being you want to occupy becomes a lot easier because your ego fights it less. States of being are like an outfit of clothes you put on, or the avatar that you're selecting to play in a game. States are attitudes of mind with specific beliefs. Identifying with a state determines what you perceive and experience. Do you want to play you but sad and lonely? Do you want to play you but happy and confident? What does that look like? What does that version of you think like, act like, walk like? What do they do? Get really specific. There are all these different versions of you, and through quantum observation, you actually select which one is real in your reality. But how can you select it when you aren't even familiar with it? So answer the questions I just asked, write them down, get familiar with this version, fall in love with it. Now, enter that state in your imagination. Your body, which is what your subconscious mind really is, does not know the difference between physical reality and your imagination. Can you accept it as true in your imagination? You don't have to believe it as true in your 3D. You don't have to pretend right now if that's too hard for you. But can you just accept that at least within the realm of the kingdom of your imagination, it is true? Can you immerse yourself in it? Can you grant it to yourself within? And if you can do that, the feeling of the wish fulfilled results. And now, going back to your 3D reality, can you challenge yourself to think more and more from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not of the feeling of the wish fulfilled? Can you challenge yourself to start identifying more and more with the version of yourself that you would rather be? I mean, why wouldn't you? You're clearly not fully satisfied with your current reality, so why would you keep thinking the same thoughts that led to that reality if you're not enjoying them? Unless, of course, it was to soothe your threatened ego, which wants what is familiar. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean to anyone, but I am tough love, and some people don't like it, but I have helped more people through tough love than gentle love, so I will continue being me. And in great parts, I'm speaking to myself as well. My past versions, my future versions. This is very much a holistic communication. Get really familiar with the identity you wish to assume. You want to be confident? Study confidence. Study it. You want to be in a happy relationship? Study relationships and love and health in all those aspects. How does a confident person think? How does a person who loves themselves think? Write it down. And then study yourself. Look at your current beliefs and thoughts. Write those down too. Keep lovingly returning to the new state you wish to occupy until it feels natural. I wanted to say until the mirror world reflects it, but it doesn't matter whether the mirror world reflects it or not once you truly become it. And incidentally, when you truly become it, is exactly when the mirror world reflects it back. Thank you for tuning in. Keep going. You got this. I'll be back soon.